Hello and welcome to Tarot and Attachment. My name is Erin Smith, and this is the week ahead reading for September 2nd through September 8th. I'm happy that you have joined me here today, and I appreciate your interest in my work. I would love it if you would subscribe to the channel and feel free to interact. It is helpful in ways that allow the channel to grow. So this is an interesting week. We're starting things off on Monday with a new moon in the sign of Virgo. So that energy may be toning some of the themes of the week. But I'm going to look even farther ahead and just see what energies might be coming together and how that might manifest in terms of real world patterns. So I'm going to look at this, consult the cards, and see what insight we might be able to gain through the tool of tarot. So I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to go silent. I'm going to concentrate while I shuffle, and I will be with you momentarily. Okay, I'm just going to say a prayer over these cards. Hmm. Oh, so some really beautiful energies that are coming through, and sort of the anchoring point or the thing that we're being called to keep in mind as we move through this week is this idea of surrendering to circumstances as they present themselves to us, and really meeting each new occurrence, each new opportunity with this faith that we are following the right path. The Fool is actually not a fool at all. He's so connected to spirit. He trusts that if he steps off the cliff, he will be carried. So there's an energy in the Fool of leap and the net will appear. And, you know, the archetype of the Fool is both one who is in absolute faith that they are being divinely guided through the world, that there's a kind of protection that surrounds him, and that he's able to make the most of every situation because of this heightened state of presence. the shadow side of this archetype is hubris, right? He's not watching where he's going. He's not paying attention to his circumstances. He's overly reliant on this idea that that everything will just magically turn out okay. So I think it behooves us to notice, to be mindful of our circumstances or our environments. But it is also really this reminder that life takes many turns, and specifically this idea that we can't really know the importance or significance of certain events in our lives until we look back in retrospect. And certainly, I don't know, I'm fairly certain that you will all be able to relate to this, but this is an experience that I've noticed in my own life. That there are times where I was going through something that at the time seemed sort of catastrophic, something akin to falling off a cliff. It usually involved some sort of loss or change that I equated to a loss of security. And so that could either be the ending of a significant relationship, or I can think of it happening a couple of times in the past where I've lost certain jobs. And at the time, those conditions were frightening, devastating, in fact, that that experience was extremely distressing, and it brought up a lot of mental talk about my worthiness or whether or not I was going to be taken care of or provided for in the world. And that sort of fear and doubt and judgment kept me from sort of being present in the moment and sort of accepting the circumstances and being available for what the next right indicated step might be. And really, it is only in retrospect that I can look back at those distinct times in my life and see how it was actually a necessary change, and not one that I necessarily would have volunteered for, right? So there's one situation I'm thinking of in particular. This was back in one of my several past lives where I was working as a set decorator in the film industry. And I think this was the first time that I'd ever been fired from a job. And I took it really hard, as we will, I felt that this was somehow a mark against me, that there was something wrong with me, that, even that kind of, imposter syndrome that people talk about, like, oh, they've discovered that I'm not worthy of this position, or, all the things that come up when your security feels like it's being threatened. And yet, what I didn't know at that moment in time, that would reveal itself only a week later, is that I was offered an even better position that was more financially advantageous and a bigger responsibility and more challenging, like all the things. It was a wonderful opportunity that I would not have been available to accept had I not been fired from a position even just the week before. And so this is sort of the energy of the Fool. The Fool is asking us to stay open and to trust the process, that even things in life that feel like they may be calamitous could actually be a necessary step in getting us to the next stage, the next phase, that could in fact open up parts of ourselves that connect us to a higher sense of purpose. And that's really coming through here in the star. The star is finding your divine place in the universe. It's clearing the channel of all limiting self-beliefs so that you can be this clear conduit for spirit, so that everything you do in the material realm is imbued with this higher state of being. And so it's like watering our ground with this very fertile, very enlivened or energetic flow that helps us to align with what is most true for us. Again, trust the process. Make ourselves available for divine insight or guidance in terms of how we're going to navigate next steps. And then trust that if we follow through on this higher insight or intuitive knowing about what to do in the process of moving forward, that we're going to be connected to people and opportunities that allow us to express our purpose here on earth. And so then what we're led to is the lovers. So the lovers are this beautiful, I mean, even just the image of this card, this perfectly symmetrical image. The lovers really represents unity and balance, both within ourselves and then the experience of having that be outpictured in the world. You know, it is often related to divine right partnership. And what I've discovered about the nature of this card or this archetype is that that is possible when we find that state of balance and wholeness within. And so here it's very much represented by the primordial man and woman. And this idea that we each within us contain this energy, this masculine and feminine energy. And this is not really so much about gender, because regardless of what gender you identify with, the quality of this energy is true for each of us. That the masculine part of ourselves, it's a very hermetic principle, assigning this masculine energy to an externalization of force, will, intention, taking an action, and having it manifest in a material way in the external world. Whereas feminine energy is assigned to being receptive. It is receiving insight or guidance, being able to hold space for something to grow to full fruition. And especially with what's being illustrated here in the lovers, you have to remember that both of these energies are necessary in order to create new life. And this is ever so important. This is these forces, these energies, they are not at odds with one another. They are complementary. They are necessary aspects of a full and complete experience. So, you know, one without the other is impotent. If you're only in this mode of exerting your will and going and doing, it can often be like spinning your wheels. It can impede your ability to move forward. And it's sort of like this overexertion of energy without a lot of payoff. But if you're too passive and you're waiting for the spirit to move you before you take any action, and you're waiting for things to happen in such a way that you have given away your power and volition, then nothing happens in that regard either. That these energies are perfectly balancing one another. And if we are in tune, if we are listening and paying attention and going inward, then we can see where maybe we might be out of balance and how to apply the equal and opposite energy. If we're too passive, then we might need to be a little bit more decisive and take an action. If we're too assertive, we may need to hang back and wait and see. And so it's really like this fluid dance. You know, again, we are touching into this fluidity, this ability to move back and forth, to zoom in and zoom out in order to get the biggest possible perspective on our situation, right? When we're too zoomed in on the details of like, oh no, I'm losing this thing of great importance, then we might not be able to see the lay of the land and notice how there are opportunities that are coming up that would be beneficial for us to align with. So again, it's this ability to zoom in and notice the details and then zoom out and get the lay of the land and to see which position serves us the best. And so this is sort of the general environment that we're being called to pay attention to this week. So it's interesting because in this poll, these are all major arcana cards. It's sort of like bigger soul lessons that we're being asked to hold and consider. And then here we have kind of the more day-to-day direction on how we can implement some of these bigger philosophical principles. And so the Six of Swords is leaving the past behind, moving away from troubled waters and going towards a calmer shore, particularly at the level of the mind, because swords are thoughts, ideas, communication. And there's a very gentle flow to this card as well. This isn't about swimming upstream. It's very much about going with the flow and noticing this gentle direction that we are being guided towards in our life and aligning with it, surrendering to it, being in alignment. So this idea that we can trust that wherever it is that we're subtly being guided to go could lead us to our greatest good. And then even as we're moving forward, we want to take some definitive action, but the message of the Knight of Pentacles is slow and steady wins the race. So in other words, don't get too far ahead of yourself. You don't need to know what every step of the way has to look like in order for you to get to this next phase. You just have to take the next right indicated step. And again, trust that the path will unfold before you, that each new insight will be revealed in the simple steps that we take. And so in many ways, this is just about continuing to show up in the present moment, tending to the present environment, and then noticing what it is that nurtures us, feeds us, meets our basic needs, and then just taking it one step at a time. Bite-sized pieces. So I hope that gives you a sense of what may be presenting itself to us this week and how you might be able to interface with those energies in a good way. If you have, as the week goes on, if something comes up that sparks your curiosity or sort of illustrates some of these points that I've been talking about, I would love to hear it. Please leave a message in the comments about how this might relate to you in the coming week. And as always, I am wishing all of you well. Many blessings to you. Take care.